July was a journey. We're talking Frodo and Sam taking the Ring to Mordor level journey, but let's start at the beginning. You know New Year's resolutions? Those first few days you're like,
I'm gonna swim the Great Barrier Reef, I'm gonna take up crocheting, I'm gonna be in the best shape of my life, and I'm never gonna say anything mean to anyone again.
And then by like day 9 you go,
you know what would be a lot more convenient? Not changing a single thing in my life.
And that was me. For a while, I'd had a pretty crummy relationship with my creativity, and I didn't really know how to fix that. And honestly, didn't really want to put in the work to fix it. So I've always been a highly creative person, exploring drawing and painting and music and writing. Being creative was never just a hobby for me, it was a necessity. But when I decided to turn my creativity into a career, that passion turned to pressure, and I began to lose the love for my art. Drawing and painting became a chore. I boxed myself in with limiting mindsets, fears crippled me from beginning and finishing pieces. Oh, for the love of everything, why is there so much traffic? Anywho, I eventually pushed myself into extreme burnout under the guise of creative discipline. I didn't really love my creativity anymore, but I wanted to. I wanted that love back, so in a last-ditch effort, I decided to go on a 30-day quest to heal my relationship with my creativity. I used my nurture workbook to set a strong intention and used the journal pages to really dive deep into my thoughts toward creativity. I set the intention to make one piece of art every single day using any medium, focusing on any subject, and creating for any length of time. Basically, the only guardrail was that I had to make something. And the purpose? To nurture my love for my creativity and a willingness to show up to it. Spoiler alert, this intention changed partway through the challenge. So in today's video, we're going to tour through all the artwork throughout this journey, including the pieces I didn't film the process of. We'll recap everything I learned, see whether I really achieved my intention or not, and talk about what my creativity looks like going forward. So strap your seatbelts on,
safety first,
and let's take a drive down memory lane. Week 1 was all about sparking joy in my creative practice again. We started the week off with an ink and watercolor illustration of this little fox and butterfly. I've always really loved using my dip pen, but I honestly couldn't even remember the last time I'd gotten it out. I thought maybe switching things up with a different medium might spark a little bit of joy, and it definitely did. It was a great first piece to help me loosen up a little bit and simply try to have fun. That first week, I used several different mediums, partially for the joy of it, and partially for the convenience of some of them. We were visiting my sister over the weekend, and I just needed something a little less messy than gouache, so I brought along some multi-liners and some alcohol markers. It had also been a while since I'd gotten out my markers, so I think part of my joy this week was simply revisiting some old friends, I guess you could say. I actually used to be quite the marker enthusiast a few years ago, so it was definitely fun to explore the medium again. In week 2, we started to really get into more of the nitty-gritty head and heart work. I tackled 3 big limiting beliefs that had been crippling my creative practice for a very long time without me realizing it. Number 1, I shouldn't explore different subjects in my art. Number 2, I shouldn't explore different mediums. And number 3, I should stick to one style. So I took some risks this week and made some more experimental art. This was the week I made one of my favorite pieces from the challenge, the little forager girl wearing a bird skull. That piece really broke all 3 of those limiting beliefs for me. It's not a subject I've done before, skeletal art isn't really a go-to for me. I used ink and watercolor, which is not the gouache medium most people tend to associate with my artwork. And it's not exactly a cozy style or theme, but I loved it. I had such an amazing time creating it, and I honestly didn't really care if anyone else would like it or not. I stopped focusing on the impact each piece would have on my career and focused instead on the impact they'd have on my creativity. I painted some veggie groceries just because I wanted to. I explored the little tomato girl in different mediums just because I wanted to. I explored different proportions and styles for the little tomato girl, you guessed it, just because I wanted to. But while we did a lot of really deep work in my mindset toward creativity in week 2, there were definitely more beasts to battle in week 3. Just popping in to share that the autumn art sale is still going on in my shop through September 29th. The even more exciting news is that a lot of these originals, as well as the nurture workbook I used for this challenge, are available in my shop too. You can use the code AUTUMN15 to save 15% on your order. As always, every purchase is Annie Jane approved. And now, back to the tour. So week 3 was a combat with fear. Fear is a very real thing in our creative practices, and while I don't believe we can fully overcome fear, I do believe we can face it. Sort of quiet its voice, I guess you could say. So what were my 3 biggest art fears? Number 1, fear of imperfection. The fear of all the little mistakes in my work that remind me that I'm not a perfect person. The truth is, there's always going to be things I could have done better in my art. Brushstrokes that could be smoother, shapes that could be clearer, colors more vibrant, and compositions more appealing. But when we focus on achieving perfection, we're placing more importance on the end result rather than the process it takes to get there. The joy we can have in simply creating. So to face my fear of imperfection, I had to embrace the messy. Embrace the imperfect parts of my practice, and learn to just love the process. The art I make can still be beautiful and impactful without being perfect. Fear number 2, the fear of failure. I think our society as a whole is very uncomfortable with failure. We view it as something shameful. We view failures as a waste of time. We view failure as some deeply personal shortcoming. But failure doesn't have to be negative. It's an incredible teaching tool in our practice. It shows us what not to do, it shows us how to do better next time, and it shows us our own tastes as artists. So to face my fear of failure, I had to embrace the risk. To embrace that failure is always a possible outcome, but to remember that sometimes failure is the only way to learn. A failed piece isn't wasteful, it's creative mileage that still moves me forward in my practice. And the third fear I had to face was the fear that I wouldn't like what I made. When we don't like something we make, it just hurts. It feels like you don't like you because art is personal. We put little pieces of ourselves into everything we make. So to face that fear, I had to embrace every single piece as a part of my creative journey. The ones I loved and the ones I didn't. The ones I framed for my wall and the ones I wanted to rip up and cast into Mount Doom. Because creativity isn't about always loving the end result. It's about showing up and making something and finding joy in the process. Each of these fears put more focus on the end result than on the process as a whole. So as I began to face these fears and work through them, I began to love the entire creative process more and more. So week 4 brought me into a battle between frustration and flow. Frustration, like fear, is another common element in our creative practice. It comes when we either can't figure something out or we've made a mistake. I think our first instinct when we face frustration is to rage quit. Frustration is annoying and it's uncomfortable. But this week taught me that frustration doesn't have to break my flow state. I can shift that frustration and channel it into a more beneficial mindset. So I learned to reframe my mindset and look at the problems in my art as creative puzzles for me to solve. I learned to find the fun in the challenge. Unfortunately, this isn't just a switch you can flip in your brain that makes it instantly easier to solve every problem and deal with your frustration. The hard is still hard. But each time you deal with frustration and push through it, you come out on the other side with more artistic endurance. But sometimes the frustration is big and I just need to take a break from a piece. And that's absolutely okay too. Sometimes a walk or a snack just gives me enough time to clear my head, adjust my attitude, and come back to the piece with a fresh pair of eyes. I'm human. I still get frustrated, but this week taught me that everything in art is figure-outable or fixable, and I just need to give myself the time and the headspace to do it. So in week 5, we tackled one last piece of my creative practice: creative discipline. More specifically, the question of whether or not you should make art every day. For years, I'd heard professional artists saying,
"You have to make art every day. You need to make art every day."
And while I truly do think they had the best intentions in what they were saying, it's a very vague and broad generalization that doesn't necessarily apply to every artist. It's a statement that can make you feel like you aren't an artist if you don't make art every day, or that your value as an artist is tied up in the number of pieces you make in a year. Like the art fears, those words can put more emphasis on just putting out a piece rather than enjoying the creative process. So even though I was dealing with extreme burnout with my creativity, I thought I just had to keep cranking out pieces because I thought that's what creative discipline meant. Looking back, I know that just made the problem worse. Hindsight's 2020. But as I began to heal my relationship with my creativity and learn to love the practice again, making art every day was good for me. And that's when my intention shifted from nurturing a willingness to show up to my creative practice to showing up for my creative practice. The word "to" felt more like showing up because I thought I should, and I would shame myself if I didn't show up. But the word "for" felt more like showing up because I knew it was good for me, because I loved art even if I didn't always feel like making something. There are ebbs and flows to the creative practice. Some days you're full of motivation, and other days you just don't really feel like showing up. But you show up for your art anyways because it's good for you. But I don't think creative discipline means you have to show up every single day. I think it's more about long-term consistency. I think it means different things for different artists. For the creative who isn't in a good place with their creativity, maybe creative discipline looks like acknowledging that you don't like where you are and working on healing your relationship with creativity. For the stay-at-home mom homeschooling her kids, maybe creative discipline looks like taking an hour every other evening after the kids go to bed and just spending some time making art. Or maybe you're in a good place with your art and creative discipline looks like sitting down for 5 minutes to doodle even though you don't exactly feel like it. On those days, the days I might not have anything to give to creativity, the creativity still gives me something. Whether it gives me a few moments of rest from a busy day or a smile from doodling a simple bits and bobbles sketch. Because my relationship with my creativity is healed, I always walk away from a creative session feeling good. So did I achieve what I set out to do? Did I heal my relationship with creativity? Did I meet my intention? I would definitely say yes. Is my creative practice perfect? No. Do limiting beliefs and fears and frustrations still creep in sometimes? Absolutely. But this challenge has really equipped me to face all of those things. It's helped me let go of the limiting beliefs and explore in my art practice. It's helped me learn how to face my fears, to deal with my frustrations, and it's built up my creative discipline and endurance. And most of all, it's helped me find joy in my creativity again. I learned that not only is it okay for me to explore in my practice, but that it's actually crucial for me to explore. I'm a creative that thrives on curiosity and exploration. I love to learn and try new things and play with different mediums. Some creatives find their joy in one subject or one medium, and that's awesome, but that's not me. And this challenge taught me that that is okay. My creative practice doesn't have to look like anyone else's. I learned that creativity isn't about always making something you love 110%. It's not even about making something amazing. Sometimes it's simply about showing up to make something. Not out of guilt or shame, but out of love for the act of creativity. So how will my creative practice change and grow moving forward? I believe I will be more intentional about the frequency of my creativity, still trying to create something every day, even if it's just a simple doodle. Because I'm finding joy in my creativity again and loving the process, it's not a burden anymore to bring my sketchbook with me when I go out. Art isn't something I'm hiding from anymore. It's something I'm actively seeking. Yes, there is still resistance sometimes. Like we talked about for week 5, you don't always feel like making art. But I'm still trying to show up daily for my creativity because I know it's good for me. It keeps my skills strong, it gives me space to explore, it helps me expand my imagination, and it releases creative energy. And sometimes when I'm just having a rough day, it gives me a moment of peace and coziness. If you've been part of my little YouTube community for a while now, you've probably seen me do some pretty intense challenges over the years. Challenges like painting 100 scene studies or developing 20 original illustrations for my portfolio. And these kinds of challenges most definitely grew me as an artist. The 100 Scene Studies challenge grew my compositional, color mixing, and painting skills by leaps and bounds. The 20 Illustrations challenge helped me dive deeper into my own creative style and grew my storytelling skills. But this challenge, these simple 30 days of consistent creativity and delving into my thought patterns, this grew me more than all the other challenges combined, I think. Because this is what restored my relationship with my creativity. It restored the love for it. And if you don't love your creativity, then all the skills in the world don't really matter. So how do I feel about my creative practice now versus at the beginning of the challenge? I can honestly say I feel much more confident and playful. Confident that I'm capable of learning and growing, and playful in my exploration of different mediums and subjects. I used to be so focused on finding a style, but I'm realizing that God has given me the incredible gift of loving exploration, loving many different subjects and styles and mediums. It's time for me to stop rejecting that gift and glorify my creator by using it to the fullest. I really don't want this video to sound like I'm the one that made it all happen. Yes, I did do a lot of hard work, but I genuinely believe it is all thanks to God that I made it through this challenge. I prayed a lot about all of this, prayers for strength in the hard moments, and prayers of gratefulness for each bit of growth. This challenge was so beneficial for me, and I'm so excited to keep moving forward. Anywho, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of the artwork and going on this 30-day journey with me. If any of the pieces struck your eye, I do have some of the originals available as well as prints up in my shop. And huge thank you to the Cozy and Curious Creatives over on Patreon for helping to support my art journey. I genuinely could not do this without you guys. If you're interested in learning how you can spice up your own creative practice, then head on over to watch this video next. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye guys!